A comedy legend who made millions laugh, died, broke, and alone. His Las Vegas mansion sits abandoned, filled with secrets and unpaid bills. Red Fox went from earning millions to owing the government everything. What happened in those final moments? And what dark secrets does his empty house still hold? From St. Louis streets to nightclub stages. Long before the world knew him as the foul-mouthed junkyard owner Fred Sanford, a red-haired boy named John Elroy Sanford was learning that life could be cruel from the very beginning. Born on December 9, 1906, in the rough neighborhoods of St. Louis, Missouri, John entered a world that would test his resilience at every turn. His father abandoned the family when John was just a young child, leaving behind a mother who struggled to make ends meet and a grandmother who would become the most important person in his life. Mary Hughes, his maternal grandmother, stepped in to raise the boy when his mother could no longer cope with the pressures of single parenthood. This tough, no-nonsense woman would shape John's character and teach him that humor could be a weapon against hardship. The neighborhood kids quickly noticed John's striking red hair and freckled face, giving him the nickname Red that would stick with him for life. But it was not just his appearance that made him stand out. Even as a teenager, Red had a sharp wit and a fearless attitude that caught people's attention. He would entertain friends and family with impressions and jokes that often pushed the boundaries of what was considered acceptable. By his teens, Red knew he wanted to perform. He started hanging around the black nightclubs and vaudeville theaters of St. Louis, watching seasoned performers work the crowds. These venues were rough, adult-oriented places where comedians had to be quick, dirty, and absolutely fearless to survive. Red soaked up this atmosphere like a sponge, learning that shock value and raw honesty could make audiences laugh harder than clean, polite jokes ever could. His big break came when he started performing at small nightclubs, developing a comedy style that was completely different from anything mainstream audiences had heard. While other comedians played it safe, Red went straight for the jugular with explicit material about relationships, sex, and street life. His jokes were raw, honest, and often outrageous, but they connected with audiences who were tired of sanitized entertainment. Word spread quickly through the entertainment underground about this fearless red-headed comedian who could make people laugh until their sides hurt. Club owners started booking him regularly, and soon Red was making a name for himself in the world of adult comedy. He began recording his routines on what became known as party records, explicit comedy albums sold under the counter at record stores. These underground recordings would earn him the title King of the Party Records, setting the stage for a career that would eventually make him millions. But first, he had to survive the dangerous world of nightclub comedy, where one wrong joke could end everything. Sanford and Son, the show that changed everything. By 1971, Red Fox had built a solid reputation in the underground comedy world, but mainstream success still seemed like an impossible dream. Then everything changed with one phone call that would transform him from a nightclub performer into a television legend. Producer Norman Lear had been searching for the perfect actor to star in his new sitcom, an American adaptation of the British show Steptoe and Son. Lear wanted someone with real street credibility who could bring authenticity to the role of Fred Sanford, a cantankerous junkyard owner. When he heard Red Fox's party records and saw him perform live, Lear knew he had found his star. Sanford and Son premiered on January 14, 1972. The show featured Red as Fred Sanford, a widowed junkyard owner living with his adult son Lamont in the Watts neighborhood of Los Angeles. What made the show revolutionary was its honest portrayal of working-class black life, something television had never shown before. Red brought his nightclub experience to the small screen, creating a character that was both hilarious and deeply human. His famous catchphrase, "You big dummy," and his elaborate fake heart attacks became iconic moments that audiences quoted for decades. The show's success was immediate and massive, consistently ranking in the top 10 most-watched programs in America. Within 2 years, Red Fox had become one of the highest-paid actors on television, earning $25,000 per episode. This was an astronomical sum for any actor in the 1970s, but especially groundbreaking for a black performer. The show's success made him a millionaire several times over and opened doors that had been firmly closed to African-American entertainers. Sanford and Son ran for 6 seasons until 1977, making Red Fox a household name across America. The show broke barriers by featuring predominantly black characters in lead roles, dealing with real social issues while still making people laugh. Red's success paved the way for future black comedians like Richard Pryor, Eddie Murphy, and Chris Rock, proving that authentic black comedy could appeal to mainstream audiences. At the height of his fame, Red was living like royalty. He bought expensive cars, designer clothes, and threw legendary parties at his Los Angeles mansion. He was appearing on talk shows, starring in movies, and commanding huge fees for live performances. The former nightclub comic had built an entertainment empire that seemed unstoppable. But with great success came great temptation, and Red's taste for the high life was about to lead him down a dangerous path that would eventually destroy everything he had worked so hard to build. The mansion that money built. When Red Fox decided to spend his television fortune, he did it in spectacular fashion by purchasing a massive mansion on Eastern Avenue in Las Vegas that would become the stuff of entertainment legend. This was not just a house. It was a palace fit for a comedy king who had finally made it to the top of the world. The sprawling estate featured 8 bedrooms, each decorated with expensive furniture and artwork that Red had collected from around the world. The main living areas were designed for entertaining, with a massive great room that could hold dozens of guests, a formal dining room with seating for 20 people, and a fully stocked bar that rivaled any nightclub in Vegas. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceilings, and every surface seemed to sparkle with gold accents and luxurious finishes. But the real showstopper was Red's entertainment complex. He built a private nightclub right inside his home, complete with a stage, professional sound system, and lighting that could transform any evening into a Las Vegas-style show. The game room featured pool tables, card tables, and every type of gambling equipment you could imagine. This was where Red truly came alive, hosting parties that lasted for days and attracted the biggest names in entertainment. Celebrity guests regularly filled the mansion for these legendary gatherings. Sammy Davis Jr., Dean Martin, and other members of the Rat Pack would stop by for impromptu performances. Up-and-coming comedians would hang around hoping to catch Red's attention and maybe get some career advice. The parties were wild, expensive, and absolutely unforgettable. Red's love for gambling was legendary even in a city built on risk. He would think nothing of dropping $50,000 in a single night at the casinos, treating money like it was play chips. His garage was filled with luxury cars, Rolls-Royces, Cadillacs, and custom vehicles that cost more than most people's houses. His closet was packed with designer suits, silk shirts, and jewelry that glittered under the Nevada sun. The mansion became a symbol of excess that even Las Vegas found impressive. Red would fly in guests from around the country, put them up in luxury hotels, and spare no expense to make sure everyone had the time of their lives. He hired full-time staff to maintain the property, including chefs, housekeepers, and security guards who worked around the clock. But there was a dark side to all this luxury that few people saw. The monthly expenses for maintaining this lifestyle were staggering. Between the mortgage, utilities, staff salaries, and constant entertaining, Red was spending money faster than even his television success could bring it in. What started as the American dream was slowly becoming a financial nightmare that would eventually consume everything he had worked so hard to achieve. When the tax man comes knocking. The first warning signs arrived in 1978 as innocent-looking letters from the Internal Revenue Service, but Red Fox had no idea these pieces of mail would eventually destroy his entire empire. While he was busy living like a king and throwing money around Las Vegas, a financial storm was brewing that would make his worst nightmares look like pleasant dreams. The problem had been building for years, without Red even realizing it. His accountants and business managers had been handling his finances while he focused on entertaining and enjoying his success. What he did not know was that they had been failing to pay his federal taxes properly, allowing the debt to grow larger and larger with each passing year. By the late 1970s, the situation had become a complete disaster. When the Internal Revenue Service finally calculated the total amount Red owed, the number was absolutely shocking. Over $3 million in unpaid taxes, penalties, and interest. This was not just a simple oversight or accounting error. This was a financial catastrophe that threatened to wipe out everything he had worked his entire life to build. The IRS was not interested in excuses or payment plans. They wanted their money, and they wanted it immediately. When Red could not come up with the full amount, federal agents began showing up at his Las Vegas mansion with seizure orders and legal documents. These were not friendly visits. They were government-sanctioned raids designed to collect every valuable item they could find. The agents went through his house room by room, tagging expensive furniture, artwork, jewelry, and anything else of value. They seized his luxury cars from the garage, including his prized Rolls-Royce collection. Even his entertainment equipment and the furnishings from his private nightclub were marked for government auction. Watching strangers go through his personal belongings and take away the symbols of his success was humiliating and heartbreaking. But the financial pressure was nothing compared to the psychological toll this nightmare was taking on Red. The man who had once been confident and fearless on stage began showing signs of severe stress and paranoia. He started worrying that every phone call might be another demand for money. Every knock at the door, another government agent coming to take more of his possessions. The stress began affecting his health, his relationships, and his ability to work. Friends noticed that Red was becoming increasingly bitter and suspicious of everyone around him. He fired his accountants and business managers, but the damage had already been done. The IRS was like a predator that had tasted blood, and they were not going to stop until they had taken everything. This was just the beginning of a downward spiral that would eventually cost Red Foxx everything he had ever earned, and searching for any way to escape the government's relentless pursuit. The comeback that never came. Desperation makes people do dangerous things, and by 1986, Red Foxx was desperate enough to risk everything on one last chance to reclaim his former glory. With the Internal Revenue Service breathing down his neck and his debts mounting every day, he agreed to star in a new television show called The Red Foxx Show, hoping lightning would strike twice and save him from financial ruin. The show was supposed to be his triumphant return to television, a chance to prove that the magic of Sanford and Son was not just a lucky accident. Red played a character similar to Fred Sanford, but the timing could not have been worse. Television audiences had moved on to different types of comedy, and the show felt dated and out of touch with 1980s entertainment trends. The Red Foxx Show lasted only one season before being canceled, dealing a crushing blow to Red's hopes for a comeback. Instead of solving his financial problems, the failed show left him even deeper in debt. He had invested his own money into the production, hoping for a big payoff that never came. The cancellation was not just a professional failure, it was a personal catastrophe that left him feeling abandoned by the entertainment industry he had helped to shape. Desperate for income, Red began trying various business ventures that all seemed to fall apart. He invested in restaurants that failed, nightclub ventures that lost money, and get-rich-quick schemes that only made his situation worse. Each failed business deal added more debt and made his relationship with creditors even more complicated. Red had been married multiple times, and his relationship problems were adding stress and financial strain to an already impossible situation. Divorce settlements, alimony payments, and legal fees from multiple marriages were draining what little money he had left. His wives complained that he was becoming increasingly difficult to live with, angry and bitter about his fall from grace. Friends who had once flocked to his legendary parties began avoiding him. The entertainment industry that had once celebrated him as a groundbreaking comedian now saw him as a has-been with too much baggage. Phone calls were not returned, meeting requests were declined, and opportunities that might have helped him recover simply disappeared. Red became increasingly isolated and paranoid, convinced that people were plotting against him or trying to take advantage of his desperation. The confident, larger-than-life personality that had made him famous, bitter man who trusted no one and saw enemies everywhere he looked. As the 1980s drew to a close, Red Fox was running out of options, running out of friends, and running out of time to save himself from complete financial and personal destruction. Inside the abandoned Vegas mansion, today, the mansion that once hosted the biggest parties in Las Vegas sits empty and decaying, a ghostly reminder of dreams that turned into nightmares. The house on Eastern Avenue that was once filled with laughter, music, and celebrity guests now stands as one of the most haunting abandoned properties in Nevada, telling a story of spectacular rise and devastating fall. Walking through the front doors is like stepping into a time capsule of broken promises. The crystal chandeliers that once sparkled during legendary parties now hang covered in dust and cobwebs, their light dimmed forever. The great room where Sammy Davis Jr. and Dean Martin once entertained guests is now filled with shadows and silence, the expensive furniture covered in sheets or simply left to rot where it was abandoned. In what was once Red's private nightclub, the stage still stands, but the magic is long gone. Old microphones lie scattered on the floor, and the professional sound equipment has been stripped away by vandals and scavengers over the years. The bar that was once stocked with the finest liquor now holds nothing but empty bottles and broken glass, creating an eerie reflection of the man who once ruled this space. Perhaps most heartbreaking are the personal items that remain scattered throughout the house. Photographs of Red with famous friends lie forgotten on dusty tables, their frames cracked and images faded. Comedy albums and awards that once represented the peak of his success are now worthless relics, collecting dust in corners where they were hastily abandoned. The neighborhood around the mansion has also declined dramatically since Red's heyday. What was once an exclusive area where celebrities felt safe to visit has become a forgotten corner of Las Vegas, where few people venture after dark. The house has become a symbol of how quickly fame and fortune can disappear, leaving behind only empty rooms and broken dreams. Local residents and urban explorers who have visited the property report strange and unexplained phenomena. Some claim to hear the sound of laughter echoing through the empty rooms late at night, as if the ghost of parties past still haunts the mansion. Others have reported seeing lights flickering in windows that have no electricity, or hearing the faint sound of Red's voice telling jokes to an audience that no longer exists. Whether these reports are real or just the product of overactive imaginations, there is no denying the eerie atmosphere that surrounds the property. The mansion feels heavy with the weight of unfulfilled dreams and squandered opportunities, a physical reminder of how the entertainment industry can build someone up only to watch them fall. This abandoned house would soon become the least of Red's problems, as his personal struggles were about to reach a tragic climax that no one could have predicted. October 11th, 1991, the day the laughter died. The morning of October 11th, 1991, seemed like any other workday for Red Fox as he arrived at the CBS studios in Hollywood to rehearse for his new television show, The Royal Family. At 68 years old, he was grateful to have another chance at television success, hoping this show would finally help him escape the financial nightmare that had consumed his life for over a decade. The Royal Family was Red's attempt at one more comeback, co-starring with Della Reese in a sitcom that felt familiar to his Sanford and Son roots. The show had been getting decent ratings, and for the first time in years, Red seemed optimistic about his future. He was working with people he trusted, doing what he loved best, and maybe, just maybe, things were finally turning around. During the afternoon rehearsal, Red was running through his lines with the cast when he suddenly grabbed his chest and fell backward onto the set. His face turned pale, and he began gasping for air as he clutched at his heart. To anyone watching, it was clear that something was terribly wrong. But this was Red Fox, the master of fake heart attacks. For years, Red had been famous for his elaborate fake heart attack routines. On Sanford and Son, Fred Sanford's dramatic fake heart attacks were one of the show's most popular running gags. Red would grab his chest, look toward the ceiling, and cry out, "This is the big one, Elizabeth," in reference to his deceased wife. The routine was so iconic that everyone who knew Red had seen him perform it countless times. So when he collapsed during rehearsal that day, the cast and crew initially thought it was just Red being Red. Some people even started laughing, thinking he was improvising a new bit or practicing his famous routine. A few cast members called out, "Come on, Red, quit fooling around," as he lay on the floor struggling to breathe. But this time was different. This time, it was not a joke. Red was having a massive heart attack, and precious minutes were being lost while people waited for him to get up and take a bow. When it became clear that something was genuinely wrong, panic set in, and paramedics were called immediately. The ambulance rushed Red to Queen of Angels Hollywood Presbyterian Medical Center, where doctors worked desperately to save his life. But the damage was too severe, and the delay in getting medical attention had made the situation even worse. At 7:25 that evening, Red Foxx was pronounced dead from a heart attack. The tragic irony was impossible to ignore. The man who had made millions of people laugh with fake heart attacks had died from a real one, and his final performance had been mistaken for just another comedy routine. The king of comedy was gone, but the story of his life and death was far from over. The sad reality of a broke legend. The harsh truth about Red Fox's financial situation became painfully clear within hours of his death, when funeral directors asked a simple question that no one could answer. Who was going to pay for the burial? The man who had once earned millions of dollars and lived like royalty had died completely broke, leaving behind a mountain of debt and no money for even the most basic funeral expenses. Eddie Murphy, who had grown up idolizing Red Foxx and credited him as a major influence on his own comedy career, stepped forward to cover the funeral costs. Without Eddie's generosity, the comedy legend might have ended up in an unmarked grave, a final humiliation that would have been unbearable for someone who had given so much joy to the world. The funeral service was held at Palm Mortuary in Las Vegas on October 19, 1991. Despite Red's financial troubles, many celebrities came to pay their respects to the man who had paved the way for so many others. Della Reese, his co-star from The Royal Family, delivered a moving eulogy. Other attendees included Slappy White, his longtime comedy partner, and various entertainers who remembered Red's kindness and groundbreaking contributions to comedy. But even as friends gathered to honor his memory, lawyers and accountants were discovering the shocking scope of Red's financial disaster. When all the debts were calculated, including unpaid taxes, penalties, interest, and various loans, Red Foxx owed over $4 million at the time of his death. He had literally died, owing more money than most people earn in a lifetime. The estate had virtually nothing of value left to distribute. The Internal Revenue Service had already seized most of his valuable possessions years earlier, and what remained was barely enough to cover basic expenses. This led to bitter family disputes over who would inherit what little was left, with relatives arguing over items that had more sentimental value than actual worth. The media coverage of Red's death focused heavily on his financial failures, often overshadowing his remarkable contributions to comedy and entertainment. Headlines screamed about his debts and the fact that Eddie Murphy had to pay for his funeral, turning what should have been a celebration of his life into a cautionary tale about money management and the dangers of fame. Many people felt this focus on his financial troubles was unfair and disrespectful to his memory. Red Foxx had broken barriers, influenced countless comedians, and brought laughter to millions of people. His legacy should have been about his talent and his impact on American entertainment, not about his inability to manage money or trust the wrong people with his finances. As the funeral ended and the crowds dispersed, one question remained unanswered. How would history remember Red Foxx, and what lessons could be learned from his spectacular rise and devastating fall? The cautionary tale of comedy's king. More than 3 decades after his death, Red Fox's story continues to serve as one of entertainment history's most powerful warnings about the dangers that come with fame, fortune, and placing trust in the wrong people. His life reads like a textbook example of how even the most talented and successful people can lose everything if they do not protect themselves from financial predators and their own spending habits. The comedy world has never forgotten Red's influence on the art form. Richard Pryor openly credited Red as a major inspiration, saying that watching him perform taught him that comedy could be raw, honest, and deeply personal. Eddie Murphy has repeatedly acknowledged that without Red Fox breaking barriers on television, his own career might never have been possible. Chris Rock, Dave Chappelle, and countless other comedians continue to cite Red as a pioneer who proved that authentic black comedy could reach mainstream audiences without losing its edge. His impact on television cannot be overstated. Sanford and Son opened doors for shows like The Jeffersons, Good Times, and eventually programs like The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and Black. Red proved that television audiences were hungry for honest portrayals of black family life, paving the way for generations of performers who followed in his footsteps. But his financial downfall serves as an equally important lesson about the business side of entertainment. Red's story highlights how celebrities must take personal responsibility for understanding their finances even when they hire professionals to handle the details. Too many entertainers have learned the hard way that fame and talent mean nothing if you do not have trustworthy people managing your money and protecting your interests. His Las Vegas mansion remained abandoned for years after his death, becoming a tourist attraction for fans and urban explorers who wanted to see where the comedy king once lived. The property changed hands several times, with various owners attempting to restore it or tear it down. Today, the house has been renovated and sold to new owners, but locals still refer to it as the Red Fox House, ensuring that his memory remains connected to the place where he once hosted the entertainment world's biggest stars. The most important lesson from Red Fox's life is that talent alone is not enough to guarantee long-term success. Financial literacy, careful planning, and surrounding yourself with honest, competent advisors are just as important as any creative gift. His story reminds us that the entertainment industry can be both generous and cruel, often within the same career. Red Fox made the world laugh, broke down barriers, and changed television forever. But his legacy also serves as a reminder that even kings can fall when they forget to protect their kingdoms.